guys, welcome back to my channel. And before we delve into all things mystical, spiritual, esoteric, um, I would like to say that I'm a firm believer in lasting positive change and transformation. I believe it because I've proven it to myself. And if I can do it, anyone can. And I think only my family and a select group of people that have been with me for long enough on this journey can really attest to the degree of transformation that I've undergone in this life. I've reinvented myself more times than I can count just to reach this fuller version of myself. So this is not about perfectionism. This is not about perfectionism at all. It's about getting down to the core of who we really are and bringing out more and more of that into expression. It's about becoming a fuller, truer expression of who we really are and who we're meant to be in this life. It's a process of slowly peeling away the layers and outer shells that have been put on by conditioning, by our circumstances, the way we were raised, society, school, brainwashing, in all of its many ugly heads, and really taking an honest look at ourselves. And it's not always easy to do, and not everybody's ready to do it. You know, I remember when I first started this journey, that first, like, long, hard look in the mirror, that's not an easy one. It's not. But, you know, the funny thing is, once we start to really face those demons, they're not as scary as we thought they would be. For the most part, our demons are just rejected aspects of self, you know, parts of us that we exhibited at one point or another in front of our family or friends, and, you know, someone gave us this response that created this underlying message that that part of ourselves is not good in some way, that, and we kind of threw it into the shadow realm and kind of rejected that part of ourselves. And the more and more this happens, the more and more we become repressed and just not our true selves. And so this process of self-discovery, this process of awakening, what we are first and foremost awakening to is who we really are on a deeper level. And that does require us to look at everything, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, the light, the dark, and to acknowledge all of those parts of ourselves, even the dark sides. We all have dark sides. You know, this being spiritual and being awakened doesn't mean, you know, always being happy-go-lucky and elevated. I mean, yeah, that's ultimately the goal, is to remain elevated as much as possible. But to get there, there's so much baggage that we need to release, so much about ourselves that we need to face and heal. Now, I honestly believe that we can absolutely make this world a much, much better place just by doing our own inner work, just by going inward and healing ourselves and learning to love ourselves. Oh my God, that is the biggest one, and unfortunately that is probably the most difficult part. But what I like to say, and I say it quite often, is if we really, really want to truly love ourselves, we need to find out who the heck that is. And that means really taking that deep, hard, honest look in the mirror, and to stop projecting on others, because that is what we do. When we're not ready to deal with ourselves, what we do is project on others. And I'm gonna go much deeper into that in another video. But the point I want to get across right now is, it's about taking responsibility for our part. It's kind of like a neighborhood. Think about the block that you live on. So if I take care of my property and my surroundings, and each neighbor takes care of their property and their surroundings, what we have is a much more beautiful block. And then you got the ones who put out like holiday decorations, which I love, by the way. So festive, so joyful. And that's really what it's all about. It's their expression. And if we all just take care of ourselves and heal ourselves and stop projecting outwards on others and stop judging and really just bring all that attention back to ourselves and do that inner work, the healing, the discovery, the learning to love ourselves, then we slowly find that, first of all, we find more compassion for ourselves, and then it's easier for us to be a lot more compassionate towards others. Also, when we do the work, it helps us to find inner peace. And so we go out into the world a more peaceful person. And so piece by piece, the more and more of us do this work, there's going to be less and less people going out into the world and throwing their rage around, So it's like you almost got into an accident with someone, and then that person comes out of the car and they start yelling and they start putting all this. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can instead say, okay, nothing happened, thank goodness. Let's just be grateful for it and go on about our day feeling extra blessed, and putting that energy out. But that starts with us. So instead of me, blaming this guy for getting angry and I can take responsibility for just disarming that by bringing my peace. And that is how we make change in the world. So it starts with us. It starts with our own inner world. And so to be awakened means to be more conscious, first of all, of ourselves on a higher level. It means paying attention to our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, and what we put out into the universe, the biosphere. So if we're going out, if we're leaving our home in the morning and we're agitated and we're taking that with us on our day, that is what we're putting out that day. Chances are that's also what we're going to attract back to us. That is what we're going to see in our day. We're going to be attracting that same type of energy. Now, we're attracting that energy so that we can see ourselves. It's coming to show us something. So as opposed to projecting it on the other person and saying, oh, that person's so angry and so, frustrated, and we need to be able to catch ourselves in that moment when we're putting something onto another person and it's triggering us. If it's triggering us, it's ours to see and deal with and heal. And so the more and more conscious we become, the more we can put all those parts of ourselves that need to be healed in the light of consciousness and start working on them. And at its very basic level, that is what it means to be awakened. It's to have a higher degree of self-awareness. It's not just about being aware of how we look and how we behave. It's being conscious of our thoughts. Meditating is not just some, spiritual fluff. It's really about becoming more conscious of what goes through my mind, what emotions go through me, what thoughts. And when we can change that core of our being, or the nature of our thoughts, then automatically it changes the nature of the words we speak and the actions we take and our behaviors and our belief systems and our responses to whatever life throws at us. And so not only are we making the world a better place, we're making our world a better place. It's about our inner world. It's about really going inward, discovering our inner world, healing, seeing, putting everything in the light of consciousness and seeing, being more aware of our strengths, our weaknesses, our flaws, seeing what we're able to change, what we're able to work on, and what we can just accept about ourselves. And at any given point, those things can change. I'll give you an example. So I'm a snail. I tend to move at a very slow pace. I can't do things quickly. I need my time. I'm a person who just needs to take their time with pretty much everything. And so when it comes to getting ready, I need a lot of time to get ready. And my family, for the most part, they used to get really, really frustrated with me. Like whenever we would need to go out or go on a vacation and do something, it was always that, everybody's ready and they have to wait for me. And at one point I thought, I bring so much good stuff. I bring so much good to the table. Like, why can't my family or my friends or the people closest to me just kind of, accept that about me? This is something that at that point I thought, maybe this is just me and I want to accept that about myself. And so what happened afterwards is life kind of introduced me to a couple of different people at different time frames, because I didn't really embrace the lesson the first time. I kind of saw it but didn't embrace it, so it came back again in the form of another person. So a couple of different people who are worse than me. Like, they take forever to get ready, and I had found myself in a few situations where I had to wait for them, and I realized how so very frustrating that can be, and how selfish it is too. And so I said to myself, okay, if I want to accept this about myself, then fine, just give myself more time. So if I was giving myself an hour to get ready, now I started giving myself 2 hours to get ready, so that I can take my time, but not somebody else's. Because time is precious, on the earthly plane. We don't really know how much time we have here, and we have a lot to do in that time, and time is precious. And I realized how selfish it was of me to take away from other people's time. And so once I really, really got the message, I finally implemented that change, and I said, okay, in my mind, I always think, okay, I need an hour to get ready, but let me just give myself 2 hours. That way I can just take my time. I don't have to be under pressure, and I'm not, taking away from somebody else's time. And that's that. So if I wasn't ready to face myself when those people were introduced into my life, I would have just been projecting on them, and I did to some degree, but I caught myself. At some point, and I implemented those changes within myself. And that's what it means to take care of our side of the street, and this is how we can absolutely make change in the world, just by taking responsibility for our part. And the rewards are limitless, because when we honestly begin to accept our quirks and flaws, the parts of us that we can't change, and we start to really love those parts of ourselves and heal the parts that can be healed, we're creating a healthier and happier and more peaceful inner world. And slowly, piece by piece, our outer world becomes a reflection of our inner world. Now, the reason that a lot of us are actually afraid to do that is because we're so afraid of change. And, I did realize that the more I evolve and the more rapidly I evolve, um, sometimes, more often than not, I tend to fall out of touch with certain people because, kind of my frequency's changing in a different direction. They may be stagnant and I'm like growing in this direction, or at times, I may be stagnant and they may be growing in a different direction. And so, change, inner change can create outer change. It may even prompt us to move, to relocate, because now that we've changed our frequency, we no longer resonate with where we are, whether it's our workplace or where we live or, our social setting. And that can be scary. Yeah, yeah, that can be scary. Change can be scary, but when you know that it's a positive change, you kind of just, you take that leap of faith and you discover that, okay, I totally needed this and I'm actually happier here. And I'm, if I relocated, now I'm meeting people who are more on this new frequency that I'm vibrating on. And this new social scene is kind of cool. And I'm meeting some interesting people here too. And I'm discovering new things about myself. And, we're made for change. We're made for change. When I hear people say, oh, people don't change, on the one hand, I get it, because a lot of people don't. Because, most of us are scared of change. But if we continue to let fear rule our lives, we're just going to remain stagnant. And let's be honest with ourselves. Many of us are just not happy where we are. Some of us are, and life just kind of feels good and we're happy where we are and we're satisfied, and that's okay. This is a personal journey. There's no judgment here. We are where we are on our journeys. But for those of us who have been feeling stagnant and who have been feeling the need for change, and I think at this point in time, life is kind of forcing us into that change, because the world as we know it has drastically changed over the last couple of years, and there's no escaping it anymore. Change is the only guarantee in life, and we either accept it and go with the flow and allow those changes to happen in a positive way, or chances are those changes will be thrust upon us. So the acceptance of change and not letting fear rule our lives is probably the biggest decision a person needs to make before embarking upon this journey of awakening and self-discovery. And yeah, it's a little scary. But again, it's we can choose to live a fear-based life, or we can choose to live a faith-based life, and that's where spirituality comes in. There's a lot that we can explain through the mind, and a lot of that is valid. I've briefly explored, quantum mechanics and, all these different scientific theories, and that's all it's valid, and I think it's worth understanding. But to me, exploring the mind space and everything logical and scientific is not enough to help me I'm not going to say remove the fear. There's no removing fear. There's only learning to move forward in spite of it, and hanging on to faith and living a more faith-based life. For me, spirituality is what provided the tools, the guidance, the resources, the reassurance, the security that I needed to release the fear, to feel the fear, and take bold action in my life in any way, and make those changes and make those positive changes, and I'm not going to tell you they were easy. It's not easy to make these changes, but it was always, always, always rewarding, and it was always ultimately a positive experience. And to reach this place today of loving myself, of accepting myself more fully, of being able to do this, because let me tell you, it has taken me forever and a day to come back out here and to commit to this. I started this channel a couple of years ago with the help of a photographer friend. And thank you for that, Antonio. Greatly appreciated. But I wasn't truly ready. I wasn't ready. I was still a work in progress. And I wasn't ready for this, to just sit here and talk into the camera and look at myself after all these different levels of transformation, after all the work that I've done. It's like seeing the finished product, even though we're still a work in progress. We're always a work in progress as long as we're here on earth. But to see this more full and whole and complete, version of myself after all the work that I've consciously done with myself, this was a very scary moment for me. And even after all the work that I've done, yeah, it's still scary to take that look in the mirror. But you know what? It's absolutely what I needed. And I'm finally starting to feel comfortable just looking at myself. And when I kind of look at myself at all these different angles, and each angle kind of looks really different, and I'm seeing all these different sides of myself, and you know what, it's really not that scary anymore. Because I've really delved in deep. I've been honest with myself. I've looked at those demons. I've taken those projections. I've honestly caught myself, time and time and time again, projecting on others, and allowed myself to really see what it was reflecting back to me. And today I'm in a place where, for the most part, and I spend time with so many different types of personalities, and I can honestly tell myself that I can sit there comfortably. I can observe people's behaviors, and they don't trigger me as much. I'm so much more accepting of others because I'm more accepting of myself. I've accepted my my quirky sides, my weird sides, my emotional sides, my clingy, whatever it is, all those labels and whatever we're kind of accusing others of. Once we can acknowledge that about ourselves and say, okay, so maybe I'm a little bit of this, and let's work on that. Let's just work on that. And whatever we can heal and release, we heal and release. And whatever's left, we just accept it with love. And that's a part of us. And we just need to acknowledge it. Like, I'm this, I'm a little bit of this, I'm a little bit of that. I have this, trait and this characteristic. But, in a culture so obsessed with perfection, it makes it harder. It makes it harder to accept the imperfections. And so I decided not to use a filter. When I was kind of preparing to get back out here, people recommended different things. Oh, there's an app that you could use. It's a filter, because when I look, I can kind of see like the bags under my eyes, and how we're so critical of ourselves. But I decided not to use a filter. I don't like to wear foundation either. It's heavy. I don't like the way it feels. But for the most part, this is the example that I want to set. Let's not be afraid to show our blemishes, and our flaws. We don't have to put it all out there, but just slowly build the confidence to just be, you know, just be. Uh, and let me tell you, when you get into the self-discovery, it's not just the demons that you find. You find these really incredible parts of yourself that you didn't know were there. Suddenly you discover all these like gifts and talents and abilities, and you discover that you have this like sweet side and this, all these, there's so much good to discover. There's so much unexplored territory. And so again, the reason that a lot of us are afraid to embark upon that journey is because we're afraid of the negatives that we're gonna find. And we let that fear stop us from discovering all the positive. And there is so much positive, amazing, unexplored territory. I am so happy with what I've discovered about myself, about who I really am, and it was so worth all the sifting that I had to go through and the cleansing. So awakening is really, it's kind of turning on the light, you know. Because when you sit in the dark for so long, you get used to not seeing, and you get comfortable with it. It gets comfortable after a while, just sitting in the dark and not having to deal with anything. And when you turn on the light, you see, you see the dirt, you see the clutter, you see the parts, that need to be cleansed and healed and attended to. But there's so much good to discover. We're multi-dimensional creatures. We have so much going on inside of us, and I strongly encourage each and every one of us to embark upon that path of awakening, that path of self-discovery, and get excited about what you're going to discover. So instead of focusing on the negative aspects, like, the parts of ourselves that we don't really want to see, we can approach this journey from a more positive standpoint. Like, okay, we're gonna sift and we're gonna see those parts and we're gonna work on ourselves to get to the real prize, to get to the treasure, to get to the heart space, to get to the core of who we really are. Because at the core of who we really are, we are divine sparks that came here in physical form to express our divinity, our spirituality, our creativity, our gifts, our talents, our abilities to share love and light. And so many of us just have all these gifts hiding inside of us, and we know they're there. They just need to be unlocked. And the key to unlocking them is to go inward and do the work. There's no easy way, there's no quick fix, there's no shortcuts. What there is good guidance. And there's a lot of good guidance out there. Now, when it comes to guidance, my recommendation is do not make anyone your guru. I am not your guru. I do not want to be your guru. I am here to possibly teach you how to become your own guru, how to go inward and discover your intuitive faculties, your higher faculties, to learn how to trust yourself. The way that I've built my newfound belief system is by opening myself up to many different types of teachings, including the teachings that I grew up with, and to just take what resonates with me and discard the rest, or just leave it, to maybe revisit it at another point. But the only way that we can begin to acknowledge what resonates with us and to know what's really true is by building a relationship, with our inner selves, with our higher self, with our higher faculties. Because, let's take the situation that the world is in now. There's so much information out there. How are you ever gonna know what's real and what's true? Because there's facts backing up this side of the argument, and there are facts backing up the other side of the argument. How will you ever know what's true for you if we don't learn to trust our inner knowing? The only way to learn to trust it is to build a relationship with it. Let's start building a deeper relationship with ourselves. Let's get to know ourselves. Let's get to know those inner parts of ourselves, our inner faculties, our higher faculties, our internal guidance system. It's not easy to learn to trust it. That takes time. Like any relationship, it takes time and just building and constant building. And so part of my relationship with my intuition was built through jotting down my intuitive hits. Every time I had a strong intuitive hit, a gut instinct, a hunch, and I trusted it and I went with it and it was right. And so we slowly build a more trusting relationship with ourselves. And obviously that's very related to our relationship with the divine, the higher power. That is a whole other video, and we will absolutely get into that. Yeah, that's a topic that I can go on and on and on for days on end. And we're gonna get into all of that. But today I just kind of wanted to cover the basics of what we're doing here, what this channel is all about. And that's it. That's what awakening really is all about. It's attaining higher levels of awareness, self-awareness, awareness of ourselves and of others and the world around us at a much higher and deeper level. That's really all it is. And in the next video, we're gonna go into evidence of awakening. How do I know that I'm awakening? And we're also going to be covering what we're awakening from and to, what we're awakening to. But for now, I think that's enough for today. Thank you for being here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.